He says, I'm not saying you can't have supernatural gifts, but do it in order. So the main focus of the worship service is to minister to the people who are there, which means you need to use the known language. So he says, but there's a time for singing, there's a time for prayer, there's a time for exhortation, there's a time for prophecy, and there's a time for tongues. But if you're in that context and somebody speaks in tongues, evidently God is using that as a sign to the unbeliever. So the unbeliever attention will be arrested, something miraculous going on. But in order for everybody, whether believer or unbeliever, to benefit from it, it has to be interpreted. So Paul is explaining the gifts of the Spirit. There is the gift of tongues, and there's a gift of interpretation of tongues, which he mentioned in chapter 12. So he says, in the church, you're worshiping, you're praying, you're singing, you're preaching, and all of a sudden somebody wants to speak in tongues. Evidently, God is trying to speak to the congregation. So at that moment, you should all pray for interpretation. Then that person, or maybe another person, will use the gift of interpretation to give that same message in English or Greek or whatever the language of the people. And so when that happens, everybody is blessed. Or if somebody has a prophetic word, which would be in the known language, and they speak, then everybody's blessed.